Welcome in, everyone. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here today because we're unpacking one of the most wildly debated, polarizing, and buzziest cultural phenomenons of 2026. We are diving deep into Carol Claire Burke's absolute smash hit debut novel, Yesteryear. Now, this book, it isn't just a bestseller, it's a literal lightning rod. It sparked a massive bidding war, triggered intense ideological debates all over the internet, and actually landed a major Hollywood deal before the manuscript was even finished. In this explainer, we're going to look at the fascinating ways this book tackles our modern obsession with the internet, authenticity, and the very real dangers of curated online lives. Grab a cozy drink and let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this and outline our roadmap for the explainer today. We're going to cover both the mind-bending plot and the massive internet discourse surrounding it. First up, the Tradwife phenomenon. Second, welcome to Yesteryear. Third, the shocking reality revealed. Fourth, a polarized public reaction. And finally, Hollywood and beyond.
Starting right off with Section 1, the Tradwife phenomenon. So if you've been anywhere near TikTok or Instagram over the last few years, you have definitely seen the Tradwife aesthetic pop up on your feed. Tradwife, which is short for traditional wife, is this internet subculture that romanticizes a very, very specific type of domesticity. Honestly, it's largely seen as a massive reaction against the relentless hustle culture ethos of girl boss feminism. Instead, you've got a movement that glorifies submissive domestic roles, pronatalism, so having lots of kids, and living this highly aestheticized pre-industrial agrarian lifestyle. It's all about, making your own sourdough from scratch, churning butter by hand, and doing it all with an absolutely perfect smile for the camera.
And this brilliantly illustrates our protagonist, Natalie Heller Mills. Natalie is a 32-year-old influencer who has taken this exact lifestyle and monetized it to the tune of 8 million followers. She's selling this cozy, deeply inspiring image of homemade jam, fresh sourdough boules, and a pristine, rustic Idaho farmhouse where she's raising her 6 delightful kids. But, you guys, it is entirely a performance. Behind the camera, her real life is held together by hidden nannies, professional producers, and industrial-grade appliances. Her husband is literally the heir to a political dynasty, and they are just raking in these incredibly lucrative corporate sponsorships. She is living the dream, sure, but she's completely faking the traditional aspect of the whole shebang.
Moving on to Section 2. Welcome to Yesteryear. Now, the inciting incident of the novel just drops you right into the deep end. Seriously, one morning, Natalie wakes up in a life that violently collides with her curated aesthetic. The farmhouse, no electricity. Her beautiful camera-ready kids are suddenly dirty and acting strange. Her soft-handed, wealthy husband is suddenly this competent, incredibly harsh pioneer farmer. And Natalie is expected to haul heavy firewood and hand-wash clothes until her fingers literally crack and bleed. So it begs the central question, did Natalie really travel back to 1855? The tension here is incredible. As a reader, you are right there with her, trying to figure out, wait, is she the victim of some cruel reality TV hoax? Is she being tested by some higher power? Or did she genuinely time travel to the pioneer era she spent years glorifying? Which brings us to Section 3, the shocking reality revealed.
Okay, quick heads up, a major spoiler is incoming right now as we unravel the book's highly debated midpoint twist. The book operates on this really confusing, non-linear timeline, but it does that on purpose to mimic Natalie's own fractured psychological state, because she hasn't traveled through time at all. What actually happened is that following a massive public cancellation and a huge scandal involving her producer and her husband, Natalie suffered a severe psychotic break. She and her husband Caleb retreated completely off the grid. So that 1855 timeline, it's actually a delusion. By the time we reach the future timeline, decades have passed. Natalie is now in her mid-50s, suffering from dissociative amnesia. She's completely blocked out that traumatic fall from grace, not to mention the decades of extreme isolation that followed. To put that into perspective, just look at the absolute divergence between her simulated performance and her pathological reality. First, you've got the Instagram fantasy, the handsome cowboy husband, the charming rustic warmth, the delightful perfect children. But the off-grid truth? It is horrific. Caleb isn't some traditional protective leader. He's an abusive captor. He's a doomsday conspiracy theorist who drugs Natalie's tea and subjects her to horrific abuse. The farmhouse is actually a freezing, primitive compound. And get this, he even fakes their agrarian productivity by secretly buying Walmart vegetables and grocery store meat while the family literally starves. The kids are profoundly neglected. One even suffers permanent cognitive damage from an unassisted home birth. It is a really dark, chilling reality orchestrated entirely by Caleb. But despite
all of this intense starkness, the emotional core of the book rests with the children. And this is where we find some truly deep, inspiring life lessons. The author, Caro Burke, actually said in an interview that the true question of the book isn't whether you can change the world, but rather, can you love a broken world? In the novel's epilogue, the surviving kids are finally exposed to the modern world their parents tried so hard to hide from them. And instead of being terrified, they find it incredibly beautiful. They realize the world is broken, for sure, but they choose to exist in it and find beauty anyway. It's a surprisingly tender, deeply reflective lesson about resilience, about moving forward, and about extending grace, even to the mother who ruined their lives.
All right, let's shift gears and look at Section 4, a polarized public reaction.
So, stepping back into the real world, the interpretations of this book split sharply down political and religious fault lines. It acted like a total ideological Rorschach test. On one side, progressive publications and left-leaning critics championed the novel. They interpreted it as a sophisticated, essential critique of right-wing hypocrisy and the Christian nationalist movement. To them, the book exposes how the Tradwife aesthetic is used to whitewash systemic inequality, domestic violence, and patriarchal control. They view Natalie's downfall as this biting indictment of the algorithmic panopticon, showing how the obsession with performing for an online audience can completely corrupt private life.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the completely opposite interpretation that emerged from other readers. Conservative and religious commentators looked at the exact same text and championed it as a deeply moral cautionary tale. From their perspective, the book doesn't attack traditional values at all. Instead, it exposes the decadence and superficiality of modern digital culture. They argue that Natalie and her family weren't punished for having conservative values, but because their faith was entirely fake. It was a monetized performance, devoid of any genuine, authentic spiritual devotion.
But regardless of where you fall ideologically, the literary execution faced some serious objective criticisms from readers and reviewers alike. First up, timeline friction. A lot of readers felt the constant jumping around caused major confusion without a clear narrative purpose. It kind of became a chore to figure out exactly when a chapter was taking place. Second, the treatment of disability. Reviewers, particularly in the UK, strongly criticized the novel for using severe child injury and a botched home birth as frankly cack-handed plot devices without really exploring the nuanced reality of those traumas. And finally, flat characterization. Some critics argued that Natalie lacked real depth and served merely as a cartoonish punching bag to prove the author's thesis, rather than feeling like a fully realized human being.
Finally, Section 5, Hollywood and Beyond.
So, all this frenzy and discourse surrounding the book resulted in a massive four-way bidding war for the film rights, which ultimately went to Amazon MGM Studios. And get this, it's going to star and be produced by Academy Award winner Anne Hathaway. What's wild is that Hathaway's involvement sparked a whole new wave of online discourse. Her real-life pregnancy announcement actually coincided with the film news, leading to intense parasocial speculation on social media about her own private life. People were ironically projecting the exact same obsessive digital surveillance onto her that the book is actively trying to satirize. It's crazy how life imitates art sometimes.
Which brings us to our final overarching takeaway. Whether you view Yesteryear as a masterpiece of social satire or a flawed thriller, it forces us to confront the digital panopticon that we all participate in every single day. It asks us to look past those beautiful, perfectly curated squares on our feeds. What dark realities are hidden beneath our favorite online aesthetics? It's a deeply provocative question about the fragility of curated identities, and it's one that will absolutely leave you thinking long after you close the app. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did, and I'll catch you in the next one.